Good day humans, it's Tricks the Manga Goblin here, and today we're going to be talking about a webtoon called Ellinssolhwa. This is by Cibeles, I believe she's an English or Canadian author who publishes on Webtoon and a couple of other channels as well. Ellinssolhwa is a historical Otome Isekai romance type story. It's in full colour. It was released in 2019 and it was finished this year. Okay, going forward, what's it about? Well, as previously stated, it is a sort of reincarnation thing with Ellin getting reincarnated into the past as a concubine. And before you click off because of drama or the atypical thing that you might find in Korean webtoons, there's not a lot of that here. If there was, I would have dumped it faster than drinking something with aspartame in it. But saying that, I read this through because it was compelling. Now, I don't normally read mangas or manhwas like this because I'm just not really into them. There are some that I've enjoyed, but there is a lot out there that have put me off. For example, Miss Mystic. This does remind me of that in some ways. Less so the drama, more so the art style. Miss Mystic, of course, is something I'll come to another time. Going from that, Ellin in Solhwa's body meets an individual called Kia in the library. Kia is a sort of advisor to an emperor known only as Light, who has just united 3 kingdoms under his rule with the help of the aforementioned Kia. Solhwa's body belongs to one of the conquered people, the last conquered, or the Azurites. She arrives in the capital with an individual called Jin, who was her former lover. And as time goes on, now there's going to be a few little bits of spoilers, so if you want to read it, this is where you stop. It is worth reading for the artwork, for the happy end that most people get, except for one individual who dies before the story starts. And all the villains get punished, all the heroines and heroes get rewarded. It is nice to see a story that does that. So if you're looking for that type of thing, go and read it now. From now, there's spoilers. So 3, 2, 1, 0. Jin is a complete scumbag, and at parts he made me want to ditch this completely. To have an individual who will use someone as an assassination mission is not unexpected for the time period. It does make sense because this happened a lot. However, normally this was done by Kanochi and not by someone you would rope into the matter. They were trained from birth basically to be assassins, not dragged into it through emotional blackmail basically. As time goes on, we meet this king. The king is rather a cool individual, and he's probably one of my favourites in the manga, simply because he will do what he wants for his friends. Now, he is the ruler of a country and has to put the country first. However, Kia seems to do that more than the monarch. The monarch seems to be more about making people happy, and unfortunately, as that goes on, it does get him, well, shivved by his own mother-in-law. Yes, there's lots of spoilers here. Or his stepmother, rather. His stepmother is a horrible character, and through the very few chapters that she's in, she really gets to come up rather quickly. But saying all that, Light, the emperor, does get sent to the future, where Ellin came from, basically, so there's a sort of crossover in that respect. However, we don't get much about Light's adventures in the future, and the author Cibeles says that she's not going to do one. I hope she does, but she says she's not going to do one, because it would be interesting to read, regardless if I would read this again, which I probably wouldn't. Right, Kia. Kia is a really odd duck of a person. He bottles his emotions and looks to the greater good. Now, that's been an excuse used by several people in the past. Used by this king's stepmother, this greater good scenario thing, where she basically wants to rule in proxy of her king and just be a sort of tyrant conqueror individual. But as I said before, she does get a comeuppance rather quickly by the time she appears. I'm going to say that as a main protagonist, Kia is rather annoying. He's got a brother complex, which dictates most of his actions, and while his past is revealed, I mean, you can understand it, why he has these feelings and why he does what he does. I didn't like it, but there we go. Ellin is the strongest character in the story, and it's her story, so she should be. She's not overshadowed by anyone, and she certainly doesn't take any mess from anyone, including the king, because she's from another time period, obviously. And those actions of looking the monarch in the eye, of not bowing your head, of eating greedily when she previously had a weak body and didn't eat meat very much because of the prize. It's all done really well. I really do love the way it's done. I really do love that everyone gets a happy end in a story. Sometimes you get these stories, especially in mangas and manhwas, that the ending feels flat. This didn't feel flat. This felt really good. And if you want to read something that has a really good end, it wraps up nicely, this is it. There's only 50 chapters or 51 chapters, including the epilogue and a couple of like 0.5 chapters. So there's like 3.5 chapters, so maybe 54 in total if you include those. But you don't really need to read the 0.5 chapters if you don't want to, because they don't really add much to the story. They're just background information and follow up on Light. Okay, last character I'm going to talk about is Moon, who is the king's twin brother. Okay, so this is a thing that's been done before, such as the Man in the Iron Mask, and I believe there's a couple of mangas that have approached the whole monarch king situation and how one would be shipped off or mysteriously disappeared or locked up. This one's done really well because he becomes basically an assassin, and he's a rather interesting character, even though the king can't remember him because of his evil stepmother's sorcery and craziness. I will talk about the character that I didn't like the most, and that's Jin. Jin is a manipulative asshole and brings down this manga. I believe that probably the manga would suffer if he wasn't included, but the fact that he's such an asshole and gets a decent end did leave me rather annoyed. But that's the only real niggle about it. I will say that Cibeles does include her work in production in one of the final chapters and lets you know how she planned the story and everything. Now that's a wonderful thing to see, and I would love if more authors would do that. Saying all this, I would recommend it if you're a fan of romance. I would recommend it if you're a fan of Otome Isekai. I wouldn't recommend it if you're a fan of rom-coms, because it isn't one. There is like 2 parts that made me chuckle. One was about a letter and another one was about her eating like mad when she finally can have meat. That was it. That's basically the only times I laughed about it. But saying all that, it's not really depression zone. It's just a standard love story that you can read. But it's done rather brilliantly, in my opinion. You can read this at the links below. I've included the author's Instagram, where she's quite happy to answer most questions from fans. Do support the artist if you can. This is available also on, I believe, a couple of other sites, which I'll include down below in the description. That's it. That's my sort of manga review for now. Those are just my opinions. If you have different ones, great. I would appreciate if you would give me a comment or a like or a subscribe or anything really to help the channel. Thank you all for your time. Do take care of yourselves, and happy reading.